We are starting off hot with the birth and the rise of civilization. The book takes us all the way from about the emergence of hominins all the way up to 1200 BCE. So we're covering a lot of time in this unit, like thousands of years. But this unit is showing us several important things. One, it overviews human evolution and how we move out of Africa. It shows us all the different hominin ancestors we have that got us to being Homo sapiens. But most importantly, the book is also showing us how hominins and humans, their survival is really a reaction to their environment. And I want you guys to remember that. Survival is a reaction to our environment. We'll see that again and again as we keep moving through the summer course. Something that's important to know too is that humans have basic needs, right? We need food, we need water, we need safety, we need shelter. So how do we fulfill these needs, especially within the environment that we live? And the survival is always going to be there as we move through history, right? People are always surviving. They're always trying to make life good. Right now, I'm hanging out in the fishing gallery here at the Harriet Center, and this highlights how people here in southern Idaho hunted and fished for, thousands of years. You can see behind me, this is a rock shelter, and you might be wondering, why am I here, right? Well, for a majority of our existence, humans were hunters and gatherers, right? About 95% of our existence, we hunted and gathered. Now, there are a few key characteristics of hunting and gatherers that we see all over the world, right? We see they're pretty egalitarian, so they're equal. They're very highly mobile, so they're moving a lot, right? And why do they have to move? Well, they have to move to follow the food, right? So often they move with the seasons. Here in southern Idaho, the Shoshone-Bannock people would move like in the spring and early summer. They'd be in the Hagerman area fishing. They'd go up to Fairfield, a couple weeks later to harvest camas. They'd either go into Nevada and Utah or Wyoming for hunts during the summer. And then during the winter, they stayed down near Pocatello, what is now Fort Hall. Right? And so they moved through the seasons, and it was all so they could search for food, right? But not only that, everything that they had, their clothes, their tools, everything had to come from the earth. Everything had to come from what was around them. However, over across the Atlantic Ocean in the Fertile Crescent, we start to see a change about 10,000 BCE. Where it's the shift from the Paleolithic, from this highly specific, highly mobile, highly egalitarian society in the Paleolithic to the Neolithic. Now, the Neolithic is the new Stone Age. I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes that cool. So right around 10,000 BCE, we see this change from the Paleolithic, this era of hunting and gathering, to the Neolithic. And the Neolithic era just means new Stone Age, right? And what's so significant about the Neolithic era is that it accompanies the global agricultural revolution. So we learned how to grow food. Now this happened in different places at different times. So it first appeared in the Fertile Crescent or Mesopotamia, or what we now know as the Middle East. And then it slowly spread. In some places, it developed independently, right? People came up with it on their own. In other places, people interacted with farmers and they learned from them. But what does it mean now that we're in a Neolithic era and we're able to grow food? It means that we have domesticated crops. So we can grow food. And that's revolutionary. No longer do we have to go and find it, but we can make it ourselves. Another thing is that we start to domesticate animals, right? We start having animals who are able to work the fields. right? And if they're growing their own food, well, they don't have to constantly go search for it. They can stay in one spot. And the other thing that starts showing up is we have people who are still working for the fields and growing food and processing the food, but we also start to have people doing other things. And this creates what's called a division of labor. So people have different jobs. Some people may be selling goods. Some people may be trading and moving things back and forth. Some people may be focused solely on making clothes or pottery, right? We also start to see the rise of writing and literature and record keeping and the bureaucracy and politics. And with all of that, we then start to see what's called social stratification, where people are no longer equal. They're on different levels, right? And that is something we still see today. Our society is still very highly stratified. And this is a key characteristic of civilizations and of the Neolithic era. But the Neolithic era, right, it means new stone age. So what was so new about the stone, or the tools really? What was so new about it? So what I have here is a grinding stone. And this is typical of what's found in southern Idaho. Now this predates, agriculture arriving here in southern Idaho, but it's a good example of the new tool use that was happening in the Neolithic era, or the new Stone Age, right? So people have always been using tools, stone tools. Before the Neolithic era though, they were more chipped. They looked more like this. This is called flint knap, and this is what we think of when we think of arrowheads. These are more projectile points. They're chipped, they're crafted. With the Neolithic era, we start to see tools that are more ground and polished, right? Because we need things that are ground in order to process food. So with a grinding stone, you would put your food, your grains, in the little depression here, and then you would take another stone and you could grind it, right? And that's how they were processing the food, right? Because we start to see not only chipped tools and flaked tools, but we start to see tools for grinding too. Just to overview, there are a few key characteristics we need to know about Neolithic civilization. We need to know that they're sedentary, they stay in one spot, right? And they stay in one spot because they've been able to domesticate crops and animals. Domestication of crops and animals, we see populations skyrocket, and a division of labor starts to appear. Society starts to be stratified. And then we also start to see the emergence of art and literature as well. So there's a lot of things happening in the Neolithic era, and it's super important, right? It's the reason why we're here today. Now, as we read and as we explore, we see that humans continue to react to our environment. There's a warming trend around 2200 BCE where civilizations actually collapse because there's famines and droughts. Herders are forced to move closer into cities, and it disrupts things, right? And there's a change in society that happens. And again, here we return to the idea of survival. The herders were migrating in search for food and survival, and they're able to find it interacting with these cities. And we have new civilizations rise up, new people in power throughout the world. So history is a process. It always builds on itself. Without hunting and gathering, we necessarily wouldn't have the Neolithic era. Without the Neolithic era, then we wouldn't have what we know as Egypt, or eventually the Roman Empire, or even how we function today in society, right? So the things that happened in the past are still relevant today. If you have any questions at all on Unit 1, the birth and rise of civilizations, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to chat with you about them. And just go do good things and be good humans.